Well, last Friday marked Singapore's first cruise to nowhere amid COVID-19.
The Straits Times' travel editor Lee Siew Hua was on board the two-night cruise. Well, here's a look.
The World Dream mega ship set sail with 1,400 passengers, about 50% of its operating capacity.
Before boarding, they checked in early to be tested for COVID-19 at the Marina Bay Cruise Centre.
Passengers were also given a mice pod for contact tracing.
Self-service buffets were suspended and restaurants and bars are cleaned and sanitized 3 times a day.
A cap of 250 guests was also imposed for performances in the 900-seat Zodiac Theatre.
Seeing the reaction of the guests, they were really happy. And there's nothing better for an entertainer than being on stage doing what they love to do.
That they weren't able to have an entertainment for this pandemic, it is really a great time for them to come back right now. So I felt the warm heart during the closing of the show. So it's amazing.
We're welcoming back our regular guests from Singapore, and we're very excited to welcome them and serve them again.
Still, despite the social distancing, there was still plenty for passengers to do on board.
Siew Hua is here to tell us more. Siew Hua, tell us first about the mood of the passengers when they board the ship and throughout the trip. How did they feel about essentially being on a cruise to nowhere?
I saw many smiles and there was some misty eyes too, a bit of emotion, because it's been a long time since cruise ships were allowed to sail out from Singapore since March. So there was a lot of pent-up yearning, right, for to travel somewhere, anywhere, and in this case, nowhere, because it was a cruise to nowhere in international waters over 2 nights. Some passengers liked it that there was a greater privacy because the ship was only at half capacity, full capacity 3,004, half capacity 1,007. In fact, it was a little less. So there were more spaces around at the pool, at workshops, and all that. And there was some emotion also because people had not enjoyed themselves watching live theatre for a long time. So they went up to the entertainers to tell them thank you.
So, Siew Hua, were passengers observing the safe management measures, and did they express any difficulties in adhering to them?
Yeah, so I was asking them, look, this cruise is not as free-spirited as cruises tend to be. You're wearing masks, there's safe distancing. It's really the cruise life was really a mirror of the safety measures in Singapore, because this cruise was only for Singapore residents. So 5 to dine, like in Singapore. However, I think they were comforted. They said that there was a medical center on board, and they knew about the protocols to turn back the ship to Singapore if there was an outbreak. So the ship could have turned back to Singapore in under 6 hours. Having said that, while most of the passengers were comfortable, many of them were veteran cruisers of like as many as 20 cruises, under the belt. The cruise industry knows that they still have to do some educating, some coaxing of would-be passengers to come back.
Right. Now, you've been on cruises before. So what were the differences you noticed on this trip compared to the cruises you've taken pre-COVID? I mean, of course, other than the smaller number of passengers and the safe distancing measures.
I guess it was this whole picture of masks everywhere. And I saw hand washing machines also, like, the soaping and the water flow for 20 seconds. The paper towel pops up. And restaurants were sanitized and cleaned 3 times a day. And I saw the theatre being fogged after the show. It was pretty cool. There was a show that I watched of multiple Santas on stage. So the Santas were wearing masks behind the beards. There were, 14 of them, and you could only have like 10 performers unmasked at any time. So that was new.
Well, Siew Hua, if this pilot proves successful, we can expect more of such cruises. What are some things that future passengers should keep in mind? Any tips and advice for them?
Right. So pandemic cruising is all about safety and also having fun. So if you fuse these two together, the trips would have to do with like, yeah, keep observing safe practices. Cruises to nowhere are for Singapore residents. So the same rules apply on the cruise as in Singapore. And also be mentally prepared for COVID-19 tests until we find a vaccine. I had to do 2 before and after the cruise. It was better than I imagined. And also the other tip is to chill, because even though we are vigilant, it's been an anxious year for everyone. So to me, it's a blessing to be able to relax.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show to share your experience with us, Siew Hua. We've been speaking to travel editor for the Straits Times, Lee Siew Hua. She went on Singapore's first cruise to nowhere over the weekend, and her account of the trip is linked below if you're watching us on YouTube.